Hi guys, and welcome to a new video of Exhcnage. Today we'll have an interview with lowstrife on Twitter. Hi lowstrife, how are you today?
I'm doing well, just a normal.
Okay. Yeah, we talked on Twitter. I wanted to interview you. Let's see how your story was in crypto. I know you were from the early days, I would say. I guess we can call it like that. 2013 you started with crypto, or you got in. Back then we thought we were late, I think. How was your experience on getting into crypto or
Dude,
Bitcoin?
yeah. Everybody thought they were late back then. It's crazy how much time has elapsed too. It's been 6, 7 years. It's crazy. But no, I think the first thing that I did was Litecoin on Mt. Gox. That was the initial narrative, as it were, or whatever you want to call it, that
Mm-hmm.
actually got me to buy.
Mm-hmm.
I went in with a couple friends and we,
Uh-huh.
and we wanted to ride that. But then it just sort of was a spiral of more and more and more and interesting. And oh wait, this and that and this and that, and then bought Bitcoin after that, and then just started getting more and more involved with trading. Really, it just seemed like I just gravitated towards it. Made
Mm-hmm.
my trading view in 2014, and I don't know, the rest is history since then. But
Really?
fuck, it's 2013 April, so it's been 8 years actually now. Just a little over 8 years since I first actually purchased anything. It's crazy.
And how did you hear of it? Like, were you on a Tor website, for example, or how did you hear of it, and where did you see it, and what made you decide like I need some of this?
Oh man, the MISC, bodybuilding.com, their forum back then,
Nice.
was very, very into it for one reason or another. And there were threads about it. And for some reason, I hooked onto it because I had heard of it through torrenting websites,
Mm-hmm.
took it as donations and starting in 2011. So, that was one of the only ways they could easily get money. And it was better than the shady Russian payment processor bullshit that they had used in the past,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can get donations to help fund things. But I had heard of it in 2011 before then, but you get the one initial hearing primer, and then the second time you hear about it is when you buy, if you're going to buy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was the initial, like,
Okay.
the first start.
Okay. And yeah, you said you started on Mt. Gox. Was there a point where you felt like a complete genius? I don't know your exact age, but yeah, you're not trying to dox, but I guess same age, mid-30s maybe. Um,
No, nope, I'm younger. I'm a
really?
Ute. I'm a Ute in this space. Yes.
Oh, whoa. You're young. Okay. But was there a time, like in the beginning, you felt like a genius? Because right now on Twitter, or I would say the last year on Twitter, we saw a lot of geniuses. Did you have like new people who think, like up only genius? Did you have that phase as well?
Oh, everybody does. And you have it,
Right?
I
Yeah.
would say, fairly regularly, I think. Like, everybody thinks in a bull market they're a genius and they've
Mm-hmm.
solved markets,
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't last. And it's that flip back and just like, oh shit, that's right. I didn't. Fuck. Okay. Fuck. So,
Yeah.
like, I think it's natural, but I don't think it's you could be immune to that. So yeah, I think definitely not at first. I was more cautious,
Mm-hmm.
but then yeah, certainly times I've gone oscillated back and forth. Oh, and one side note, I never actually made an account on Mt. Gox. I dodged that bullet.
Okay. Okay. Very
Um,
good.
but that was that's because you could buy Litecoin elsewhere, and then
Mm-hmm.
like it to be added on Mt. Gox. But I was always sketched out at the premium. I didn't understand why at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now we do, but I'm like, why would I buy it more expensive on Mt. Gox when I just go to Bitstamp and buy for
Yeah.
10% less?
Yeah,
So
so the thing that I don't know how to say it. Back then, premiums discounts were a little bit of a different thing, but you were already watching those things back in the day, and that's basically the biggest reason why I follow you. You always seem to look at markets and premiums and discounts and stuff like that, and that is also the. But you always already were doing that back then.
yeah,
Um,
it's always been interesting to me to see how markets react and what causes
mhm,
them to react, or market breaking forces happen, or if there's some shit that goes down in one place and how that interacts. I've always found that interesting, and apparently people on Twitter find that interesting too, because when I share that kind of information, it seems to get some traction. So I'm happy to share what I find interesting.
Yeah, that's perfectly cool. So you were into bodybuilding. Were you already into investing or trading in any way? Or, I mean, I assume you were into bodybuilding, but were you already into investing and stuff like that before you started with it? Or was it just, how did you develop as a trader, let's say?
Well, I was into bodybuilding for a phase. That was only a couple of years though, but that just got me onto the forum. But I had no fucking clue about investing or trading or anything. That was certainly a homegrown thing within crypto for me. I never had traded stocks or fucking knew anything about the stock market from before I ever first purchased crypto or even started trading 9 months later. Because I first purchased in April, and then I started doing some bullshit trading probably in November of 2013 with like $50. But no, I had no prior experience, and I think most of my knowledge came probably from Reddit. Bitcoin markets is a kind of dead subreddit now, but back then it was a bit more active. And then TradingView after that, and sort of just being around people, you pick up on things and you learn things, you learn what to look for, and then you start talking and you start meeting people, especially once you get into the chat room on TradingView, and you start meeting people, especially when the community was a lot smaller back then. Basically everybody who traded was on TradingView because that was the chat room. This was before Telegram, before Google Hangouts, before Discord. And so everybody who was there was sort of just trading crypto, and we were all doing the same thing. And all 13 of us. There were more than that, but it was small back then. And we sort of all grew naturally. I think the majority of people had never traded before, and crypto was their first foray into markets.
Sorry. Exactly the same for me as well. And were you profitable from the start, or did you mess up a lot, or how was your growth? Like how was your route into that, and how did it expand over the years?
Oh man, it's
when BitMEX started, for example, were you directly into it, or what were your exchanges or your routes?
Oh man, that's a story and a half. So I was fortunate. A lot of people didn't. A lot of people aren't profitable. I still argue to the day that 9% of people don't make money at the end of the day. But I guess I'm one of the fortunate ones because I dodged a lot of bullets early on, but took some losses as is natural, and losses that seem small now. But I never had a full account wipe, never have, and I was pretty much right off the bat. I proved myself. I'm like, oh, I can just make this number go up. It doesn't matter what I have to do. I just make the number go up. That's good at the end of the day. And I saw that trend. So I never really had a period where I was struggling for 6 months. I was pretty fortunate. And that seems to be pretty atypical for people who end up being good at trading. It seems like a lot of people have a tough time at first. But as for the exchanges at first, as always, what happens with traders is margin kind of changes the game. I think it's less so the leverage, but it's the ability to express your opinion in short. Because you can go long, and everybody can go long, but to be able to ride a dump, especially during 2014, when down was the only fucking direction that you went, being able to express short was really valuable. And so the rise of, at first, who was first? 796 was the first futures exchange. I think Bitfinex had margin before them. So Bitfinex had 3x spot margin. Then 796 was the first futures exchange. And then OKX, back then OKCoin, was the first one who really solved it and had it work properly ish. And then so that's sort of where everybody was trading back then in 2014 and 2015. BitMEX didn't really rise to the show until beginning of 2017, I think. They'd been
Mm-hmm.
around since 15, but their perp contract didn't get any kind of traction until China started clamping down on OKCoin at the end of 2016, and then people moved over to BitMEX.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I started on BitMEX. I think in 2017 or something. I wasn't really into leverage trading much. That is when I gained momentum in trading actively, I would say. Before just a spot hodler, mostly.
yeah, I think most traders would have a similar story to that. When you find access to leverage, that it opens up, either you blow up immediately,
Yeah,
which,
yeah.
where you have the
Mm-hmm.
gamblers who just keep,
Mm-hmm.
YOLOing and losing. But when you've gained access to leverage and start using those tools, it seems to be a pretty common story where just like, oh, okay, all right, okay, I see what's going on here.
Yeah, I mean, I just played at first with 1x leverage, 2x leverage, always below 2x leverage. So um, I was only doing good most of the time. So anyway, back to you. And was there at one point that one trade, for example, you said this is life changing, one good call, and how did you trade it? Did you do all naked technical analysis, or what were you looking at?
I scalp. So I
Mm-hmm.
have a million small little trades.
Mm-hmm.
There's never really been one big fucking slam dunk that I've done.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong, I've had some good trades, but there isn't that one, holy shit, this setup, this is a multi-year setup or whatever. I've never had something like that because that's not the play that I make. I suppose the only good trade I've had is just continually holding Bitcoin for 8 years.
Yeah. Okay.
But in terms of trading, no. I trade entirely on emotion, which,
Mm-hmm.
so technical analysis is not what I would consider an active part of making a trade. Like, I look at this stuff and I internalize it, if you will. I don't know what the
Mm-hmm.
right word is,
Mm-hmm.
but I take a look. I'm looking at support and resistance, or what indicators are doing, if they are applicable, which usually they aren't, but a couple times a year, sometimes they do come into play, and it's important to keep an eye on them.
Mm-hmm.
But but uh, uh um but when I actually come into making, executing orders, it's just like I'm looking at the order flow and I'm looking at the candle structure, and it's honestly just a feeling or a decision, just like, I want to buy here, I don't want to sell here. Yes, no,
Yeah. Yeah.
execute.
So you look at 1 minute time frames, 10-second time frames. What are you looking on? What are you scalping on actively?
It depends on how quickly the market is moving.
Mm-hmm.
Because if, like a month ago when we had that flash down to 30K for Bitcoin, well, first I was sleeping then.
Oh,
when that final
shit.
washout happened. I had bids though. I actually walked away pretty good from that. But when the market is really volatile, it becomes valuable to zoom in. But for example, right now my charts, I have one chart on the 3-minute, and then everything else is set up to the 30.
Okay.
It doesn't it's changed over the years. But when stuff, gets really valuable now, TradingView as the 15-second ticker, because sometimes a minute isn't enough to really see the microstructure for me. So sometimes I have some charts set up to 15 seconds, which are off to the side and aren't primary for me. And I'm still watching, for the most part, the 3 and the 30. So I have the 30-minute that's set up as a broader, like, kind of know where you are for the past couple days and relative to everything else, and then the 3-minute to sort of see a lot more microstructure and also help price my orders better, because you need to have a little bit more exactness versus a 30-minute, which is pretty zoomed out, and you could just not give a fuck about a $300 swing when you're looking at the 30-minute, when that kind of does matter.
Yeah. So you look at things, but do you look at like little things, like the audience, your listeners, like I, for example, scalp as well, like right now, but last 2 years, I would say I'm scalping a lot. What I look at, for example, is inverse head and shoulders on the 30 or 10 seconds, and then look for a spot where resistance is. It's like kind of simple, you know, and I look a little bit at fundings and premiums, you know, and how those change. Like, do you look at something like that, some simple things people can use, or?
Yeah, but it's at the end of the day, it's still much more of a input this all of that kind of information, either funding rates for futures or what the fuck the whale on Bitfinex is doing, opening 20,000 Bitcoin in shorts, or
Yeah.
all of those things. Sort of, I'm aware of them, but and so that can still definitely bleed over and influence of if I know this guy is trying to enter an order, or if I know that, oh shit, premiums are the funding rates are starting to flip negative, especially in Deribit where you have an instant response, and it's not the 8-hour delay that BitMEX has. You can really use that and say, hey, don't think about trying to short the bounce here, because that might not be, that might, we might be overextended, and that helps inform decisions that you're making. And it might not be an active conscious thing like I am buying because the funding is negative, but I at least use that as an input for the other things that I'm looking at to say, this is one more reason why if I wanted to consider a long, this would be backing up something like that.
So you said Deribit, by the way. I'm sorry for switching. I'm switching back and forth. You said Deribit. Are you scalping on Deribit? Is that your favorite exchange for scalping?
No, I'm on Kraken right now. Deribit has their main thing is the options market, really. I wish I could use it, but I can't, because they went full KYC a while ago, so you have to have a fully set up account. But the options market is really what they have a ton of volume on perps, but I think that's just a lot of people finding liquidity there to outsource to options. But no, it's because they have that instant response of their funding rate, because the BitMEX has the 8-hour average, but Deribit updates every 5 seconds or whatever the hell it does, or every minute. And so just keeping an eye on that as it actively updates is really important. When things are volatile, if it's sideways and it's been in the same range for 8 hours, that's less important. But if you're moving, a percent every 5 minutes, it could be pretty important, especially a couple months ago. I believe we never got confirmation for this, but I believe we saw a portfolio liquidation where there was like a couple $100 million worth of volume that got traded on Deribit, and it pushed their market pretty far to where they're trading at a couple $100 discount. Whoa. And that was really important to both see and notice and kind of play around, because that was just a huge seller came through to hedge the options that they had sold.
Yeah. Oh, quite interesting. Yeah, and you were always the quickest with information like that. You and Saka, I would say. I follow for that type of information, I would say. I
would say Saka is actually quite good at that as well. He does quite a similar thing to me, and I follow him as well. And he's quite quick, and he's quite good with what he presents as well.
Yeah, you both are pretty quick, and I think you were quickest most of the times. It's, I don't know. You see something happen, and I see something happen, and I just, look for you guys on Twitter, and you guys are way quicker at explaining what happened exactly than me, for example. You always keep an eye on I don't know, certain things happening, and yeah, I use it as well. So thank you. And do you because you look at it so well, how do you profit from it, or do you use it in your trading, or do you also have arbitrage bots, for example?
So I run no bots.
Okay.
I'm a glorified idiot. I press buttons really well, but I'm not intelligent enough or have put my nose to the grindstone enough to learn coding to be able to do stuff like that. And there's people who are, have been coding and building systems for 20 years doing that kind of stuff, and I can't compete against that. So I've never tried to foray into that kind of game. I have done arbitrage before, but it's been manual when it's been stupid. But no, that's the automated systems. I'm not the guy for that at the end of the day. There was, there's something else he said that I forgot that I wanted to tie back into, but I forgot. So
Oh, I said,
uh,
or we talked about earlier in front of the video, because then I'll.
no, just like 30 seconds ago, I've just completely eclipsed my memory. My
Oh,
like I
then.
said, like I said, I'm a glorified idiot.
Yeah,
So
no.
don't
I'm
worry.
exactly the same. We were talking about you and Saka, and you using the information you always
Oh yeah, yeah,
Twitter
that's
about.
right. That's right. I wanted to add a clarification that there are some friends that I have who are sort of the unseen horsemen who
Mhm.
I spend time with, and we sort of bounce information back and forth. But I do have to give a lot of credit to them. I'm not the only, or I'm
Mhm.
not always the only person who sees that kind of shit happening. You know, sometimes other people are looking at something different. Um, I will say that if somebody thinks it's actionable, I may or may not tweet out about it, because there is, we're here to make money at the end of the day. It's nice to provide this information,
Mhm.
but you do have to be realistic that if it is actionable information, you do want to make sure, if you're going to action it, you want to take into the account before you share it to the world.
Yeah, yeah.
That's sort of the reality of how this space operates. There's moral questions about that, but I'm not a pundit. I'm not running like a news organization or anything like that. I
No,
just
no.
share things that I find interesting. So that's
Mhm.
morally at least how I equivalent that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
also,
That's.
something else is that the actionable information, it, I mean, I guess it just ties back to what I said before, is that you have, I just input it all into this bias, unless it's like a news drop or whatever, and you just market order enter
Mhm.
and just ride that wave if you catch the news early, like when Elon was tweeting about Doge and Bitcoin. But besides that, not
Yeah,
really.
yeah. And you were. How do you handle news? Like, do you have like desktop pop-ups or something coming when certain people tweet, or how are you handling that as a scalper? Are you, I don't know, is it something you follow for news, or?
Um, no, that probably would be a good idea to have, or at least when Elon was tweeting about it, to have some sort of notification. I mean,
Mhm.
you could use TweetDeck or whatever, but no, I never did. News is tricky because you never know how big the impact is going to. Some you can sort of implicate and
Mhm.
guess,
Mhm.
but you never quite know the impact it's going to have. I think more often than not, I'm cautious about news rather than just trying to market order and get in.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, last few weeks, I would say, um, I had exactly that. Like, you have to digest news. I was quick enough all the times, but sometimes it's like, ah, it's not that bad. It's bad, but it's not that bad, and the market is not reacting to it. And then it takes 5 minutes before we dump or something. It's like, it's always that kind of thing with news. Just like you said, you have to feel it. I was lucky with the Elon news, that we were at, I don't know, high 30s. Um, but yeah, let's go on. You talked about earlier. I'm switching subject if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure.
You talked about earlier. I think I saw a tweet of you or something. Did you get messed up in March 2020?
No, I
Oh,
didn't.
oh,
That was I made money that day.
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, no, I dodged. I actually, well, overall that day I was up, but I did try to average down on ETH, but I got out of it
Hmm.
before the final leg, final leg.
Hmm.
But no, overall that day, I made money. As fucking crazy of a day that was. Holy shit.
Yeah, yeah. It was totally crazy. I was, I don't know, scalping already, lower time frames. I remember at 7,800. I was like, man, this isn't bouncing. I'm getting flat, and I took a huge hit spot wise. But trading wise, I didn't gain or lose a single BTC. But yeah, so you gained money. What exchange were you on?
Kraken at the time.
Kraken.
So everything was breaking though. It was really tough because all the exchanges were,
Down and
the
stuff and lagging.
yeah, pretty much. And Kraken is probably among the worst. Especially at the time. They've gotten better,
I
but
mean, the liquidity at Kraken is such a problem, right? Or am I wrong?
um yeah, it's a bit of a problem. It's not futures, so
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to have, a million 10 basis points away from the bid ask spread. So like,
Mm-hmm.
it's a spot exchange at the end of the day.
Okay, yeah.
So it's not that great. It's definitely worse than Coinbase, but I don't know. It's good enough for me, and it's
Mm-hmm.
the option that I have. So
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And I don't know much about the fees on Kraken, but do you market order a lot, or do you limit everything, or how do you work with that?
as a scalper, your job is to limit order.
Yeah, I mean,
That's like
I'm
that's
trading
it.
I'm trading either on Bybit and BitMEX, and they give me rebates, you know.
Yeah.
And is that the same on Kraken as well, or?
No, they have a tiered fee schedule. It
Okay.
progresses from really fucking expensive, but they'll eventually give you 0% maker,
Mm-hmm.
and
Okay.
then 0.1% taker. So it's just a 2.5 basis points up from what futures do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then it's a tiered structure, getting more and more expensive the less volume that you do.
Yeah, yeah, I feel you. I feel you. Oh, that's good to know. Um, okay. And what did you do on like? I'm just going to some recently historical days. The 2nd of April, 2019. Do you remember that day?
2nd of April 2019. Let me see. That was Bitstamp Flash Crash.
No,
Was
no,
I
no. That was
right?
the pump from 4K
Oh,
to 5.5.
that's right. Vaguely. Yeah. Not a ton of specifics though.
Okay.
I remember there was some Bitfinex stuff going on around then. They had some more news was coming out about that, but no, it obviously a huge, technical move up. I'm looking at the chart now. But no, what are you thinking about it?
Oh, well, I was long in futures that day, um, with discounts, I believe. But I mean, like I'm looking at the fundings and premiums from back then. I used the neobutane funding and premium indicator. I don't know if you know it. I'm not sharing the screen with lowstrife guys, just so you know. So he's not seeing what I'm seeing right now. But back then there were a lot of a lot of discount and negative funding we had, and we basically had a really big short squeeze. Is what I think would happen. I remember sitting ready for it, end of the week, end of the month, end of the quarterly, and then we just pumped. It was a really big move and took a lot of people out. That's what I remember from it. But
Yeah, it was because that was quite a shock because the previous what was that 3 months before that it had been relatively calm.
yeah,
And to have I think the move surprised everybody and the
hmm
people, the memory I have was it being pretty fucking crazy and then obviously starting that whole trend.
yeah,
But no, because usually what I end up trading is that when the market goes sideways, I'm not trying to position, the to try to, time the next breakout or anything like that. I trade
hmm
when there's volume
hmm
and when there's other people, shit's going left, right, up and down. And so, when it's, a breakout like that, I could trade. I don't remember if I did or not, but the following months from that, when the market was pushing up further and further, and there was a lot more like intra-candle volatility, is what I call it, is when I was trading a lot more actively.
hmm
But that big breakout, I don't like to position for breakouts. That's not the style that I've found myself to be good at.
hmm
But I'm glad you made money. That's good.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, thanks, but no. I'm just trying to see how what your story was through the big events, let's call it, and how you do it basically. We have some questions on the post I made. Can you see them as well? I'll just link you the tweet through
Yeah,
Discord.
please.
Those are questions for you after the post I made.
Yes. If every time you sit down and begin trading, you are looking at one phrase or concept to help your mind to get in the right mindset, what would I choose? Um, um, don't lose money. Every time you lose money, it changes everything. That's I feel like required watching, if anybody is listening to this, is the movie Floored. It's from 2009, and it follows a group of pit traders as the switch from open outcry is switching to electronic trading. And it required watching for anybody who's a trader, in my opinion. Less so about technicals, but it's more so learning the types of people who are involved. It's fascinating. There's many memes that have come of it. That's where the bet more guy comes from.
Okay.
But to help to get into the right mindset, for me personally, I get energy from the market. So if shit's going off left to sideways, I get almost into a flow state where I'm just able to execute and not have to actively think about it that much. So there's the thing that gets me into the mindset is actually stuff happening within the market, less so me meditating or trying to focus in on something like that.
Okay, thanks. I sent you another question from Dave. Book, website, or YouTube channel had the most profound impact on you while learning to trade?
None. Which is a great answer, which is a fucking great answer, I must say. I think what the real answer, though, is spending time with other traders and screen time. There's no real replacement for just experiencing the chart and the markets firsthand, real time, and really having real money on the line. Because as I talked about in a video I made a month or so ago, learning the technicals of trading takes about 5 minutes, but learning yourself takes years, and perhaps you never learn yourself. And so
the rational rants of psychology of trading in crypto, you mean?
Yes.
I'm showing the video right now, guys. Watch it. It's, I don't know, it's a pro tip. Watch this video, even for me, as an, I don't know, experienced a little bit a trader, I would say this is a very good video, and even I learned stuff from it.
Thank you.
Go on.
But yeah, the books, there are books out there that many traders and people do recommend, and they can be of value for sure. I'm not going to discount that. But for me, it was just hanging out with traders who are better than I am and learning from them and experiencing moves with them. That's what made TradingView so important. And so that was my primary learning experience. It wasn't, I didn't look at courses. I didn't look at books. It was to sort of just jump in and experience it that way. Perhaps it would work better for somebody else. I don't know. I think everybody's a bit different in how they absorb and digest information. So, what works for me might not be the best approach for somebody else, like it is with learning in general.
I mean, I kind of agree with you. There's no replacement for screen time. Basically, there's like you gotta be in it, to feel what it is like. And of course, there are some things you should know, like some naked technical analysis or a little bit of things you kind of heard of. You need to look at and just see what works and what doesn't, and expand from there and share knowledge with each other. That's basically I will give it as advice, but I mean, sorry. Good tips. PTSD from crypto trading we've talked about as well.
Yeah.
Like, were there events where you were like, fuck, what did I start, or why did I even enter?
Yeah, there's for that, certainly. For context, we were talking before this interview started, and I'm like, that's actually a really good topic. And I think it's natural, like when you have a bad trade or whatever, especially if it's a big move and it was a fairly considerable sum for you. I think those are natural feelings, and over time you learn how to process that. But I think the the thing that came to mind when I thought of something like that was less so individual trades like that, but more so the cumulative aspect of it over the years, because you see this stuff happen again and again and again, and in a way you get desensitized to the violence of some of these moves, to where it's just like, oh, this is happening, okay, and you just can sort of compartmentalize it and put it away. But there certainly have been times where I've gotten the deer in the headlights look, where the market just keeps moving and 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 keeps moving, and you sort of get frozen in the moment. I think that is probably one of the more dangerous situations to be in, whether you're in or not in a position, whether it's against you or for you, is realizing that's happening and starting to try to snap out of it is really important, a skill to learn how to do, because that can sort of paralyze you in the market and prevent you from taking any kind of action, which is it's tough to get around. I certainly have had times where I've had to try to step back, and like, I don't really know how to articulate how I get around that, but it's a challenge, and you got to find your path. But I think realizing it when it's happening is an important thing, a first step. But the other thing I thought of is the PTSD accumulated over years of seeing this shit happen and again and again and again, and seeing the movie play out similar ways again and again and again. And you sort of get jaded to the fact that the market is going, you become a more risk averse over the years, where you don't want to take these huge gambles or these huge bets, and you don't want to buy, whatever, be it Bitcoin or some, sub 1,000 market cap coin, I don't know, but you become a lot more risk adverse into that kind of stuff. And so it's all about that balance of capital preservation from your experience of having seen this market and what it can do to you over these years, but then also having that novelty of being able to take that risk and risk the money, because it's not a guaranteed return, and learning how to balance those as the market changes and as you change as well over the years. So it's a complex subject, but I thought it was really interesting, and I've never really dived into it before. But
no, and you talk about this as well in your rational rant, and it's very good question. And how do you handle, for example, your trading account? Do you focus on linear growth, or do you compound your accounts, or how do you work with that?
I think the easiest answer is I deposit. I've never wiped an account, so I've never had to restart from that kind of stuff, and I'm fortunate in that regard. I've had some big whoopsies, but nothing catastrophic. And also, you never have all of your money on one account. That's another tip as well. Oh, side note, that's a benefit of leverage. You can trade your full stack, but you only have to trust a portion of it to a third party, and you can keep control of the rest of it. So that's a great. Yes, people use it as gambling. That is very true, but that is a great use case for it, is that you don't multiply the amount of capital you deployed, you just have less counterparty risk by using the leverage. It comes with other risks as well, but it's a tool if used properly. But the trading account, I suppose you stack it up, you stake an amount you're willing to lose, but then my game has always been, and I treat it like a game, to just make the number go up and just add more, and then withdraw once I get to a certain target. Not all the way back down.
A lot of people don't know the word withdraw from. Sorry.
That's no, you're so right though. A lot of people don't, but that would be a big recommendation, is withdraw maybe half of the profits, restart. Build up a bit bigger, withdraw some, build up a bit bigger, withdraw some, et cetera, et cetera.
I focus now completely on linear, basically. Just withdraw all profits, like don't play with it, don't touch it. That's how I handle it for myself. Anyway, what was I saying? I had another question popping up. Anyway, go on. Did you have something else?
Yeah, I think there's one other thing about the accounts is
Mm-hmm.
that you it takes a while to become, at least for me, it took a while to become accustomed to the numbers growing larger and larger over the years, especially, when Bitcoin bubbles and your one Bitcoin becomes a lot more valuable. But it takes a while, because when I first started trading, I had $50 in the account, 0.05 Bitcoin when it was
Mm-hmm.
priced at $1,000. So fucking nothing. And I
Mm-hmm.
was trading for pennies. Like literally profit and loss was pennies, or maybe like 25, 50 cents. It was a proof of concept. I wasn't trying to make meaningful money, but it was proof of concept. And then slowly over the years ramped up to more and more and more and more and more. But adjusting to that P&L and realizing, oh shit, that's a like pretty good chunk of change at your profit and losses,
Mm-hmm.
and getting accustomed to that, it took a lot of time for me. But other people, you know, you just YOLO, 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 and that's the other side of the spectrum, where you could be too fast and loose with that kind of stuff. And I think it's really important to find a balance between the two, of an appreciation for the money that you have and you have deployed, but also not being reckless with it, because I've seen people be reckless with it, and in a way you kind of have to be with trading. But it's, tying back to what I said earlier, it's all about balance, finding balance between capital preservation and risk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I totally agree, and yeah, thank you. Do we have something else? Um, PTSD. Yes, we had that one. I think. Just going to the questions. Yeah, you asked me before in private what I thought of USDT. What do you think of USDT?
Nomad today had an excellent tweet. Let me actually send this over to you.
Sure.
I am Nomad posted a tweet where he kind of explained the business model of these stable coins, because Tether, I think they went through a lot of shit in their past as growing pains, and a couple people probably really fucked them, and they probably nearly blew up at some points. But at least what's recirculating now is we record this on the 23rd of June 2021, is that there's a little bit of a resurgence in some what would you call tether futters. But I don't believe that Tether is inherently a mistrustful organization, but I also wouldn't trust my money with them. And that's a weird, juxtaposition to put those two statements together. But I don't think that a lot of the arguments against them have too much water, especially the stuff that's more commonly refuted. But I do think there are still some very valid concerns about, well, what the fuck happened in 2017 and 2018 that we'll probably never hear the answers to. So it's a weird thing that I understand how critical they are to the infrastructure of crypto and making money flow between exchanges,
Mm-hmm.
and a fucking ton of people use them, like
Mm-hmm.
all of the time. And if they weren't what they said they were, they would have, Sam would have arbitraged them out 2 years ago. But and I think that the fact that Coinbase is a publicly traded company and lists them is about as much vouching as you're going to need.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, I think that they're a necessary part of the ecosystem at this point, and they've carved out quite a nice niche. But the point about that Nomad tweet is that Circle does the exact same business model. They don't have an audit. They invest in the same kind of yielding securities and other investable assets that Tether does. They have copy paste the same business model.
Mm-hmm.
But Tether, the first one through the wall always, gets a little bit of blood on them, because they have to, break down the barriers. And Circle came through and the wall was already broken for them, and they could just copy paste.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's basically as well why Bitfinex isn't even doing marketing, or not even like. Bitfinex has had so much trouble during the years, so
Yeah.
much shit and shit on them. Um, like they're just trying to continue for now and don't try to stand out anymore. But like you said, I think I don't personally, I kind of like Tether, and maybe it's a necessary evil, but it's more to do with the banks being a pain in the ass than, if you know what I mean. The real US dollar is the pain in the ass, and the real bank transactions are the pain in the ass, and that's what makes USDT necessary in crypto. That's yeah.
And it's also the bank for the unbanked, because it allows all of these second order crypto exchanges to exist and offer, whatever the fuck they end up offering, without actually having to have they can have a dollar pair without actually having to go through all of the expense of setting up the legal infrastructure required to do that. Mm-hmm. And then, like you said, it makes, moving money around a lot easier. Though I think that's one thing, I don't know if you know this, or I don't think many people know this, but all of the major real cash exchanges, your Coinbase, Kraken, Bitstamp, or whatever, mm-hmm. they all have bank accounts at the same bank. So if you're a big firm and you, let's say, market make on these exchanges, all of you share the same bank account. One thing they can do is that they can move money internally, and you can transfer money between these exchanges basically instantly, because it's all internal transfers to the bank. And so on these exchanges, it makes arbitrage very efficient, because, the same player can sort of run circles and do that infinite arbitrage extraordinarily quickly, and they don't have to wait on the traditional banking system. So there is some competition mm-hmm. for Tether in that regard, but Tether takes that and just multiplies it by 10, because it allows, because it's all on the blockchain, and same mm-hmm. for USDC and all these other stable coins as well. Mm-hmm. So they're an interesting product, and they're also, frankly, being allowed to exist too, because the U.S. government hasn't, nuked them from orbit, because they're printing fake U.S. dollars.
Yeah, I mean that is the because that is what I see as a big threat for it. You have all these countries with sanctions. How to say it? Like basically U.S. dollar sanctions. Like Tether doesn't have those limitations. That is what I would say is a big threat for, as I see it. Like you're not. There's no KYC really in Tether.
There is. If you're using Tether back and forth on the blockchain level, less so. But if you're going through if you're redeeming Tether and you're going through the banks, there is. And then if you're hitting an exchange, more and more exchanges are requiring KYC. Mm-hmm. I get your point, though. Yes, inherently
it's less regulated in that way.
Yeah. Just using it, if you're an individual user, yeah, you're right. There is no, but if you're going through a company, there is.
Yeah. Okay. Is there something else you would like to talk about?
Fuck, we've been going for like more than an hour now.
Yeah, we're talking almost 50 minutes. So,
shit, we went through a pretty good chunk of the list. What is the typical day is pretty boring, honestly. I don't think that's really great.
Not a great question.
Yeah, no, there's not much that I do that's really interesting or insightful.
So the big podcasts in crypto, you don't listen to them, right? Who would you listen to if being interviewed? I don't know. A little bit of a gay question, but I don't know.
I honestly, I don't listen to that many podcasts. I think the last probably Phil Potter was probably one of the last ones I listened to.
He's good.
Probably a year or two ago. I don't know. I would have to know the person.
That's one of the. I don't know. I admire him a lot.
No, I lied. SZ from Twitter, Suzhou. I listened to his podcast on Up Only a couple months ago, whenever he went on. And then Dan, oh fuck, I'm gonna butcher his name. I'm sorry, Dan. Dan Cowes kind of something or other. Fuck, I can't remember his name. I'm sorry.
Did you mean Suzu on Up Only? No, who?
Yeah, Suzu, Suezhu, I
Okay,
believe.
yeah, from Three Arrow Capital.
Yep, 3AC,
Okay.
that's the man.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
He was a good listen. I never heard I've seen what he wrote, but I never heard him talk, and he seemed to be able to put words together in a way that was nice to listen to.
Yeah.
But another person I was really impressed by. I'm trying to find his.
Okay.
Sorry, go.
No. Suzu is getting a lot of shit lately. He, I don't know. Maybe you've heard of it, or he called 15k Ethereum this cycle FUD. So he's getting a little bit of shit lately. Not sure if you know, but
yeah. I found the guy. The other podcast, I believe it was also on Up Only, who was excellent, was Dan Matuszewski, Matuzewski.
Can you send a Twitter link or?
Yeah, 1 second. I am sorry, Dan, that I'm butchering your name.
Oh, that's oh, man. Those listeners are all day, every day listening to me, or not all day, but they're listening to my accent and my, I don't know, weird effed up sentences and stuff. So they're used to something.
Yeah, fair point. I will definitely send the link over. If you want to put that in the show notes, I will find that. I'm having trouble finding it now, but I'll send that over.
Anything you want to recommend the listeners?
Ooh, get more seat time if you can. I know not everybody can spend 18 hours a day watching the charts, but when the shit's volatile, there's no replacement for seat time. But as far as other stuff to promote or anything like that, sorry, man, I got nothing.
Your YouTube channel, maybe? Or is it?
No.
Okay.
Don't. There's nothing on there.
Okay. Well, thank you a lot. I learned a great deal, and yeah, about you as a person. And guys, if you have any questions for lowstrife, post them in the comments. Make sure you subscribe, leave a like, and yeah, show some love. And if you have questions, let them know. Yeah, thank you for your time, Strife. And hope to talk to you again.
Yeah, same, man. It was a good pleasure. And I think one final thing, if anybody wants to ask questions, just respond on Twitter. I'll keep an eye out and I'll try to respond on there.
Thanks. Super. Well, that was it. See you guys again tomorrow, guys.